Adam, let's start with you. I mean, where do you even begin when digging into a figure as intensely private as Dick Cheney? What kind of K-hole of research do you go into?
Well, that was a lot of the excitement about it, was that we knew this guy had changed history in these giant ways. We knew that he affected the direction of the globe and for decades. Yet we didn't really know that much about him. We knew he shot a guy in the face, and there was a joke that he was pulling the strings on W. Bush. So I just dove in, book after book and article after article, and what you pretty quickly discover is that Lynn Cheney is a massive part of who this guy is. And then you also discover his genius for bureaucratic power games, and how this guy really saw the big picture in a way that many of us weren't even aware.
What they're talking about actually now, my daughter just had to do a government class, and they talk all about Dick Cheney, and what they talk about is the expletive on the Senate floor. Right? They bring that one up. Hurricane Katrina and his lack of interest in that, and the people shouting his same expletive back at him. Do you recall that happening?
I do.
When he went down to visit, begrudgingly.
Yeah.
But it was just interesting to see what she's being taught.
What's made it into the
about him.
history
Yeah.
books, at least the recent history books.
Well, I would think like his story is so nuanced, and the things he did were so subtle and brilliant. Like, how would you teach that? What grade is your daughter in?
7th.
I mean, that's
Eighth.
Eighth.
God, what a terrible day.
That was not a great moment, and it's on film.
Can we do that again? Ask me again.
Yeah.
All right,
Go
what
ahead.
grade is your daughter in?
3rd.
Oh God!
So
worse.
close.
You went backwards. No, but it is. It's a story, and we love these kinds of stories, and especially when you're working with actors like these guys, you know they're going to go deep into that mystery. And the question was always like, who is this guy? Where the hell did he come from? And how did he change the course of American history?
Did you guys speak to anyone close to the Cheneys in this process?
I did get to speak at one point to a friend of his, and I don't know if he knows that I spoke to that friend or not. He was very transparent, but I don't know if I'm getting him in trouble by saying who it was or not. But anyway, he was very forthcoming, and but I didn't actually speak with Mr. Cheney himself. No.
Well, we had a journalist we brought on who interviewed a lot of people from the Cheneys world. I mean, obviously, if you went to the Cheneys, it becomes an authorized biographical movie at that point. And knowing that the Cheneys have done everything they can not to have their story told, that was not the road to go. So at some point, Christian got to talk to some people from the Cheneys world, and I was able to read some interviews. Did you ever look at any of them? Or?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
You sent me a package.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. They were really helpful, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah,
Hearing about, pardon?
Oh, I was just going to say, what did your research entail?
Oh, I mean, there's so much. Lynn's a very vocal woman, so there was a lot of sort of curated information that she'd curated. So it was really helpful to have other people's point of view and to have, different people's perspective on their relationship and on her personality. It helped me sort of triangulate the information into the performance, having not met her myself. Yeah.
And then finally, it was a week before we locked picture. It was 2 a.m. and I got a phone call, and I woke up kind of in a kind of confused state. And there was a computer voice just said, the vice president will see you now. And then I was given an address, and I went to a Denny's off the highway, and Dick Cheney walked in. And we both looked at each other, and no.
None of that happened.
I was like,
I was
I
really
had not
starting
heard
to
this
believe
yet.
this.
I feel like this would have been out there. You were trying to follow along.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
By the way,
trying
the
to figure it
whole
out here.
interview would be made. I can lie
Yeah.
if you want, and just let's get this thing out there.
Yeah, I mean, it would be
It's
appropriate
like, I should
in this
know
context.
better. And even I was like,
Did I pull you in, really?
I mean, you
Yeah.
pulled me in. I
For a minute.
assumed this was not true,
Yeah,
but I was
yeah.
like, it could be.
The vice president will see you now. Did that get you? That got Christian.
You did
Yeah.
get me for a second.
I'm so gullible.
Denny's, right when you said
And
Denny's,
then
that's
what
what I knew. Yeah. Well, most biographies, I
Denny's was the
think,
giveaway.
most biographies, at least the good ones, have a point of view. How much in this case do you determine how much you are going to editorialize? I mean, in this case, how much you're going to say, these people, in retrospect, Maybe you believed it now, maybe you still don't believe it, but in our opinion, we're not good for us or for our country.
Well, the way we approached it and the way these great actors approached it was we attempted to go into the movie with just showing who they are and what they did. And if you look at what's shown in the movie, there's nothing really that's debatable. You know, we went to war in Iraq. Cheney led that charge. Lynn was a very powerful force in Dick's life. I think at the very end of the movie, like the last minute, there's a little bit of a montage with some music that sort of implies that we've lost some stuff through these kind of power grabs. But I've always said that up until the last minute of the movie, I don't think Dick Cheney would have a problem with the movie. I think we were very honest and fair.
In Christian and Amy, is that a tightrope to walk in humanizing people who I'm presuming you probably don't necessarily agree with?
Well, I think that I spoke with Adam beforehand and said, you know, I don't think it's as interesting if I approach it from a point of view of disagreement, but I should try to find actually agreement with the character I'm playing, with Dick Cheney.
I agree. I mean, I had to really find what Lynn and I had in common and dive into that and approach it like I would really any character. I don't necessarily agree with the actions and motivations of many of the characters I've played over the years, and I think it's important to set that aside and do your work as you would with any role, and really jump in and find the truth of who they are and dig into their history. And
I think the big thing you got to think about as an actor as well is Adam's not on screen, right? So, and he's very articulate and he can speak well, unlike me. And but
I feel
however,
like you're condescending now at this point, but go on.
listen to what's coming. And then, no, but you know, Amy and myself, we're on screen. So you don't want to be looking at the screen and be constantly reminded about what I think about. Just look at the character. So the less said, the better by us.
And to second what they're both saying, that was our approach. Our approach was to humanize these people. There was a mystery, there was a giant question mark that we, God bless these guys and our whole team, we charged into. And the question was, who is this guy? Who is this guy that reshaped the globe as we know it? And really, who knows anything about him other than to shoot someone in the face and cursing on the Senate floor? And so for them to do this, we wanted a human story. To start with the idea of villains and heroes is just boring. We want to show how humans can follow good intentions and sometimes go down wrong paths, or depending on your point of view, correct paths. And the humanization that these guys brought to the roles was the essential key to the entire movie. I mean, ultimately, when you say what this movie is, it's a character portrait. And it's a character portrait of Dick Cheney, and guess what? When you talk about Dick Cheney, you talk about Lynn Cheney. They're kind of the same person.
And I think the unlikely thing as well in saying we're making a film about Dick Cheney is that I watch it, and in that humanizing, I think you can actually find there's moments where I look at it and you consider in yourself as well. I think it moves beyond, personally, I think it moves beyond Dick Cheney and becomes about, you know, what it means to be a person, a family, and a nation as well. You know, and I think it's a real love story to America too. I think, you know, I mean, I don't know how you know that, but I think this guy really loves the ideals of what America could be and should be. You know, in battle with sometimes the reality and the sort of dark underbelly.
And so that's
you know,
the
but I mean,
tragedy.
man, this film makes me laugh so bloody much and cry. It's poignant beyond belief. It's very profound and bloody ridiculous as well.
There's been sort of an odd wave of nostalgia over the last year and a half, I'd say, for the Bush administration in the era of Donald Trump. And I think that's surprising because where that nostalgia is coming from, the left, which I think is the surprising thing. Obviously, this is not why you made that film, but are you cognizant of the fact that this could serve as sort of a reminder to people who are sort of comparing the two administrations?
Well, I thought that was one of the strangest things I've ever seen when they started going, W. Bush and Cheney.
yeah.
I mean, that to me is like, your house got ran over by a bulldozer, and you're like, remember when it was just infested by bees? Those were great days. We've been running around constantly with hornets attacking us, and I mean, it's insanity. I think what we miss, I think what it's really saying is that you miss the days when they would at least pretend. And I think W. Bush and Cheney were, for the most part, pretty good at pretending. And they still carried themselves and did the things they were supposed to do. The current guy we have, whether you support him or not, is not pretending. I mean, he's just doing whatever he wants to do. So, yeah, that was a strange turn. We were already in the middle of making the movie when we started seeing that, where people were like, I miss W. Bush. And it didn't affect what we did, but it was a very bizarre turn.
But I think there's something really interesting in that, because we're taught as children, aren't we, to try to see the best in people, right? And to focus on that. So I know it's very childish to do this once we're talking about presidents, etc. But I think it's part of human nature that you want to forget the bad stuff, right? So you want to look back and you want to be charitable. But at what point does that, being charitable become duplicitous as well without you realizing it? It was a really interesting story. Kevin MacDonald, I got the name right, the director who did Last King of Scotland. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He told me a story once about a gentleman who he was interviewing, and he said he was talking about Idi Amin, and he was saying, he was a great guy. He was fantastic. He used to roll up in his Ferrari here, and he'd say, clean your porch, clean your porch. Oh, he was wonderful. And at the end of the sentence, he said, he killed my brother. At the end of it, like that.
There's a war criminal from the Serbia-Croatia Civil War named Arkan. And a friend of mine wrote an article about Arkan and interviewed a woman. And Arkan was very handsome and had a pop star wife. And the woman was like, Arkan came into our town and he killed my son. He smashed his head open in front of me. And then she took a beat and he said, but he is so handsome.
Oh my God.
That's a true story. Yeah. Yeah, so there is this kind of
Charismatic leaders.
Yeah, that we do gravitate
Right,
towards.
right.
And yeah, it's understandable, it is, but I think one of the reasons we were excited about this movie and the story of these characters was that it could help us remind us that there's a timeline that got us here, that there's an emotional timeline through these characters that got us to where we're at. And I think in these crazy days of half-truths and bot accounts giving us all this misinformation, it was just really, for me, affirming to see some of the best actors in the world just put their feet on the ground and understand characters. I kind of needed that in a way.
At the end of Anchorman, it is revealed that Brick Tamland, played by Steve Carell, you know where I'm going with this,
Sure.
ends up working on the Bush administration.
That's correct.
Did you really plot this movie out, this casting out that long ago?
Yes.
He's Donald Rumsfeld.
Yeah,
in this
it
movie,
all
of course.
connects. It was all drawn up. I have loose notebooks in my closet,
Yeah.
and that was it.
Yeah.
And the next movie we're doing with Anchorman is Anchorman 3. Ron Burgundy saves the world. It's about global warming.
Yep.
And Brick Tamland is a senator who is a right-wing senator who has to be convinced that global warming is real because it's going to destroy the weather. This was all planned. Christian and Amy didn't know this, and I apologize.
But now you're part of the Anchorman universe.
All your work was to set up
We
an
all are
Anchorman.
anyway.
It was all just to set up Anchorman. That's amazing.